Texas. So I have had the unique experience of living in quite a few different places, and it is such a fascinating topic to me to look at the quality of living. It's a phrase that kind of means nothing, but in reality, it kind of means everything. The term is all over the place. Quality of life is a subjective evaluation of one's perception of reality relative to one's goals as observed through the lens of one's culture and value system. Quality of life is made up of things like affordability, the job market, economic stability, family friendliness, income equality, political stability, safety, public transportation, and the quality of the public education and health system. But wait, there's more: physical health, psychological state, level of independence, social relationships, personal beliefs, and the environment in which one lives in. Blah, blah, blah. Basically, it is a person's perception of how good their life is based off the environment they live in. So I have been lucky enough to be able to experience some more of the world than some people have. I grew up in Texas. I've lived in Utah, New York, Auckland, New Zealand. I'm now living in Vancouver. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to be directly comparing living in Vancouver, which is where we live right now, to where I grew up, which is Southeast Texas. We are here in Southeast Texas right now because I'm here visiting my family, which is so lovely and nice to be back. But for the sake of this video, I need to let you know that these are my opinions. I am a very opinionated person, but obviously my observations are not a direct reflection of every single person in Texas versus Vancouver. And please also note that it is a little weird because Vancouver is ranked in one of the top 10 nicest places to live, whereas Southeast Texas, while not on the lowest 10, definitely ranks a bit lower. So let's go explore some of my beautiful hometown. It is already so hot. We've been in the car for 2 seconds. This is the middle school that I went to. This is where I grew up. Look at how close the refinery is. No, I am being eaten. I hate standing in grass in Texas. A big component of quality of life is looking at certain things about the environment, the air quality, the water quality, and just how healthy the environment is in general. In South Texas, there is a disproportionately high incidence rate of cancer. Aren't we lucky? So it's even higher than the rest of Texas, but it is way higher than the rest of the nation. And that is in thanks to the oil and gas refineries that are just super common and prevalent in the whole area, because that is what makes the area money. This is what the whole economy around here is based off of. This is what brought everybody out here in the first place. I can remember sitting in my elementary school classes and being able to look out at the cows grazing in the pasture, and then beyond that being able to see the huge refinery flares burning off their toxic chemicals. I had the pleasure of growing up with a refinery within a quarter mile of every single school I attended. I can remember baking in the August summers at band camp, and I could taste a syrupy sweetness on my tongue. And that is actually, I forgot the name, hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide, which in low doses smells like sulfur, it smells like eggs, rotten eggs, and in high concentrations it smells and tastes sweet. In fact, when most people come into the area for the first time, they remark on how bad it smells. Today there is such a push to get rid of plastics and filter your water and buy organic and watch out for forever chemicals, and for good reason. But what if you live in a place where the air you breathe is carcinogenic? What if the water you drink is groundwater that's just cleaning the refinery air? What if there's nothing you can do to minimize these factors raising cancer rates? What if even growing your own garden, your vegetables are going to absorb the same air and the same water that is in the environment? Obviously, this affects your physical health, but tell me that doesn't start affecting your mental health as well. And at this point, honestly, the only thing you can do is throw your hands in the air and say, what can I do about it? These things directly and significantly impact things like physical and mental health, life expectancy, and economic stability. In Vancouver, we are lucky enough to have good air quality and water quality. It's something you take for granted when you don't know any different. In fact, Vancouver has some of the best water quality in the world. And there's nothing finer than going into the forest on a hike and breathing in the freshest Pacific Northwest air. None of this is any individual's fault, and it doesn't mean that any one is better than the other. But now let's go to one of the more popular spots in town. Surprise! Everyone loves hanging out at the local Walmart. Quality of food is another huge indicator of quality of living. Maybe not everybody realizes that, but I know when I go to travel anywhere new, the first thing I do is go to the grocery stores to see their quality of life. For those that don't know, a food desert is when people have a hard time accessing fresh, good quality food. When it's easier to buy Taco Bell and Wendy's and chips and cereal than it is to find locally grown seasonal produce, you might be in a food desert. If you buy your groceries from the same store that sells car tires and your office supplies and a whole new outfit and a gun, you might be in a food desert. If the only local store that actually sells fresh produce is a significantly higher price, you might be in a food desert. If you live in an area with the majority of the population population suffering from higher rates of diet-related health conditions, you might be in a food desert. Not only this, but there is such a lack of education about what healthy food is. There is so much food noise and confusion. You talk to one person and they're a pescatarian, you talk to the next and they're vegan, and you talk to the next and they're paleo, and the next person is keto, and everybody is a diehard believer in whatever diet that they were convinced of. In my experience, going to live in places outside of the States, food just makes sense. I consider myself a generally healthy person, but when I come back to visit, I honestly get so confused. It's really kind of impressive. In Vancouver, sure, people have different diets, but the access to all kinds of varieties of food with seasonal and local options as well makes a big difference. Plus, most people just eat well balanced and leave it at that. It's not overly complicated. They generally know what is healthy and what is not. I am not being cute when I say people have the wonkiest ideas of health in Southeast Texas. Again, if you are overweight in Texas or thin in Vancouver, it does not make you better than the other. In fact, I don't think it's the individual's fault at all. It actually is so confusing. The access to healthy choices is not here, and there are so many other compounding effects that make such a big difference that nobody realizes. You gotta be nuttier than a fresh jar of Skippy to go running out in Southeast Texas. So the next component of quality of living is the natural environment. Can I say my blunt opinion? Texas weather sucks. It is so incredibly hot and humid from May till it starts to finally cool off in September if you're lucky. You sweat simply by standing in the shade. It doesn't even cool off much for the mornings or evenings, and then January and February are humid cold, and most of us hot-blooded Texans can't even handle that. So maybe 4 months of the year are tolerable. But then, even when you are brave enough to try to get outside, you still have to fight off these swarms of mosquitoes and ravenous ants. There aren't a whole lot of sidewalks, and the city isn't walkable at all. Heck, even if you try to ride a bike around town, people act like they're seeing a two-headed zebra on the side of the road. To be dramatic, it feels like you are risking your life every single time you step out of your house. Okay, to be less dramatic, Texas can be very beautiful, but really the best and only way to survive the summer is to be in water. In Vancouver, people like to complain about the fact that it rains all winter, but honestly, the weather is pretty mild. That's why my husband can bike to work almost every day of the whole year. That's why I can get outside with my kids most days with the proper gear. We don't have several month chunks that we are risking our lives by leaving our house. Again, I think it is just so easy to try to hold everybody to the same standards when we should not be. For example, in the parenting community, a lot of us like to get outside with our kids, but I know firsthand how hard it can be to get outside in some places. Even your kids are begging you not to go outside because of these swarms of mosquitoes and how sticky and gross it is. It is simply not enjoyable. But when you see other people online talking about how they get outside every single day, you feel less than because you can't hold yourself to that same standard. I'm going to stop here, but know that these are just a few examples. So now that we've covered that, I want to talk about why I wanted to talk about this. I talk a lot on my platform about how to be healthier, how to get outside, how to eat healthier, and how to be happier. But I get messages from so many lovely people, including my family, that ask me, how would you do this if you were in this environment? And I am always stumped. I don't have a good answer because unfortunately we do not have all of these same options. They do not have the same level of opportunity as I have in Vancouver. It obviously does not make them less than because they don't happen to have the same access to things that I do. But it is unfortunate that a lot of people might compare us to the same standards. And it's so important to me to share about this because I know so many amazing people that feel like it's their fault that they have a hard time maintaining a healthy goal weight or finding the motivation to work out or getting outside more with their kids or going on cool adventures more often or fill in the blank. But when you have so many things being stacked against you, it is actually just harder. It is not a personal reflection on you as a person. I just wanted to highlight the duality of it. It is harder. You have to be more creative and think outside of the box. And now we are actually back in Vancouver. I will admit, I have been sharing more of the negative things about Texas and a lot more of the positive things about Vancouver, but now I'm here to balance that out just a little bit. Vancouver does have a lot going for it. For example, I just wrote this quick list. Ridiculous amounts of natural beauty, good public transportation, walkability, relatively good schools, lots to do, feels safe in most areas, great access to healthy food, but it is also insanely expensive. For example, everybody's living on top of each other. I mean, that's a big city in general, right? But here, it's especially bad. For example, we pay almost $3,000 a month to live in a basement. The homes here are $2 million, and I am not being cute. Like, they're so insanely unattainable that it just doesn't even cross our minds anymore. And again, because it's a bigger city, there's always going to be traffic issues. It ruins things to go out and like try to do certain hikes or different activities that are popular, especially at peak tourist times, because they are just so inundated with people that it's not fun anymore. Traffic is unavoidable. You can try to time it, but honestly, who expected at, 10 a.m. the traffic is going to be bad going back into the city. There's also a huge unhoused population and a lot of addiction problems. Something else I've just noticed coming back from this trip from the US, and again, this is my personal experience. This also has to do with the fact that I just went and saw a bunch of friends and family. So coming back to Vancouver, it feels like the people here are a lot more closed off. I think the way that I would describe everybody here is that they are very kind, but not necessarily friendly, if that makes sense. Another thing that will get a lot of complaints is the free healthcare, which again, I'm not actually complaining because I think free healthcare is incredible, but there are situations where you have to wait a ridiculous amount of time to get the care that you need. But again, I've never actually experienced that for myself, so I don't really have much to say on that. Another thing that really gets people is the weather can be very dark and gloomy and gray and rainy and wet and chilly for, like 6 months out of the year. Like, it's kind of a long time. I don't know. My experience is it's not that bad. And this is just a handful of things. Like, I'm sure that I could keep going and that there are plenty of things that people do hate about living in Vancouver. And then on the flip side, I wanted to share some of the amazing things about Texas because it's not all bad. It has some of the warmest, most welcoming people I have ever known in my entire life. For example, I have been down there for enough natural disasters to know how the people respond and react to that. There is no hesitation. Everybody just gets up and they give freely whatever anybody needs. It is actually incredibly heartwarming and it makes me emotional just thinking about it. Like, I've just witnessed people like giving these shirts off their backs to help out their neighbor that they don't even know. I don't think that same reaction would happen here in Vancouver. It is also a way more affordable place to live. For example, I'm pretty sure I could go down and live in Texas right now and have this nice little piece of land and be able to buy a house within a few years of saving up. Like, it's so actually attainable that it kind of blows my mind. There's so much more space to be had, which is also such a beautiful thing. And then, of course, there's a ton of amazing things that come out of Texas, like barbecue. We have some of the most famous beers that come out of there. Beyonce, Willie Nelson, Tex-Mex, like you name it, there is some incredible stuff that comes out of Texas, and it has a reputation for a reason. I would also like to point out that I was showcasing my particular hometown. There is some very amazingly beautiful things in Texas. I just didn't ever have access to that growing up, and that is for other people to have. Also, keep in mind that Texas is huge, so if I wanted to go to El Paso on a day trip, it would take me 15 hours to get over there. So I guess my end notes here are that everybody has a different experience of life, and that nobody should be judging their life based on somebody else's life. And I'm actually a huge believer in growing where you're planted, so it's wherever you are, trying to make the most of it, trying to seek out the beauty of what is around you, and taking advantage of the opportunities that you have. So if I was living in Texas right now, I would try my best to love every single aspect of it and try to make the most of it. And while I'm in Vancouver right now, I am trying to live it up as much as I can. I think my final message here is don't judge. Don't be so quick to judge yourself, and don't judge other people that they can't do the same exact things that you can, because we might not be on the same playing field. I just wanted to share some of the thoughts that I've been having the whole time while here visiting with my family. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next week. Bye. I am not joking when I say I have so many mosquito bites right now. Can you see the sweat? I'm sweating. I'm not a sweater, but I'm sweating.